And what we're going to talk about tonight are information marketing principles for solopreneurs or solo business owners, which is basically marketing without significant upfront time expense. Now, when this has been taught in the past, and you may have been familiar with what are called hidden marketing assets, and it's pretty much taught that it is a system that allows you to market your business without significant advertising expense. We are information marketers, and so we're not necessarily fully concerned, and a lot of information marketers don't necessarily go the route of paid advertising until you've really got something that that works. And so prior to that, question is going to be, so how do you market effectively without spending a lot of time on social media, without spending a lot of time trying to get customers? And we're going to talk about that tonight. And there's some things that you need to be doing in your business, or at least have in place, before you go the route of trying to, get a lot of customers. If you do what we're talking about here in this session, and you do have a lot of customers, you're going to be more profitable. And that's really the goal of everything that we are doing. First, we're going to talk about something that you may have heard of before. We're going to talk about it in a little different way, and even a different way than you may have heard it discussed by Jay Abraham or Richard Johnson or anyone else. And that is unique selling proposition, or USP, or UVP, unique value proposition. Same thing. And when you talk about USP, as a solo business owner, you want to be in the marketplace. You don't want to compete with other people, but you've got to try to find the people that you benefit most. And so that's a different way of trying to do business. You don't need to sell to everybody. And in order to sustain a business as an information marketer, one of the most important aspects is you have to project what it is that makes you and your business, your brand special, what it is that makes your product special, so that you begin to attract the kind of people that really want what it is that you offer on a routine basis, because that really is the way that you build a recurring income in an information marketing business. And it's possible that a person may not know how to decide on who can help them best, right? And so there are a lot of players. There's a lot of noise out here. There are a lot of people who are writing Kindle books. There are a lot of people who are creating a lot of content because of AI. And so people may or may not know that they need to decide on you. They may not have a good set of parameters that they can know that you're really the best person to help them. And so what you've got to do I mean, almost over time and everything you do, you've got to make sure you're communicating what you do best and how you do it. And that might sound simplistic, but in an information marketing business, it's not enough to have a good product, a good title, a timely title. If you have that plus injected into what you're doing, what it is that you do best and how you do it, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be bringing customers in who have a reason to come back to you. And that's really what we want to use a USP to do. And it's important that you communicate why it should be important to do business with you to your potential customer. And if you don't do this, if you don't say what that is, if you don't really project it, if you don't talk about it, then someone's going to look at you versus somebody else that does something similar, somebody else that offers probably the same category, because information is pretty widely available. And then your pricing is not going to make sense. Your pricing is only going to make sense when you begin to talk about your USP. Otherwise, nobody knows if what you're providing is a bargain. Nobody knows if what they should be paying is a premium. Whatever your pricing is, if you don't make it clear what your USP is, then what's going to happen is someone's going to look at you versus someone else. They're not going to know how to make a good decision. And so you're trying to help them do that by making sure that they know what it is that makes your product, that makes you and your brand special. Let's say that you deliver coaching. I mean, you can emphasize in the way that you deliver coaching if that's what you do. It can be the way you set up your sessions. And we're just using this as an example. If you're talking about, let's say that you're coaching or consulting, you may want to think about the problem that you were actually solving for your customer. And this is another important step. It sounds simple, But when you sell a particular product and you get ready to structure it and you get ready to write the copy and you get ready to actually tell people they need to get it, one of the things that you need to emphasize is what problem are you actually solving and why are you suited to be the person that can solve it? And if you start to see a pattern, right? And the reason that people are choosing your service or your product, whatever it is, over and above other people that are like you, over even doing nothing. And you start to see that people are saying, I have to have what you're selling, over and above doing nothing, or over and above everybody else, you will start to detect what your USP is. You may not know what your USP is because a USP is not a tagline, and it really isn't necessarily what you say about yourself. It really is the reason that people are going to buy something from you. Why do they trust you? Yes, we're familiar with people need to know, like, and trust you. That's pretty widespread. You're not learning anything when you hear that. But the question is, why do they know, like, and trust you? Why do they trust you? Why do they trust you enough to pull out their wallets and say, yeah, I'm going to buy from you? And whatever that is, you've got to be able to say it over and over again. Once you know what that is, you are on your way to determining what your USP is. And again, it takes a while to really determine what that is. You don't have to know it at the beginning, but you do have to eventually get there because that is really what's going to separate you from everybody else that's probably going to be selling things in your same category. And it's also going to give people who want to refer you or who want to promote you. They need something, they need a hook. And typically, the thing that they're going to use is your USP. They're not going to say, well, you've got to go and get this other, let's just use as an example, a Facebook marketing product. They're not going to say to you, they're going to say to their friend, well, you got to go get this Facebook marketing product. And the friend's going to say back to them, but there are 10,000 of those products on the market. Why do I need this one? And so what you're going to need to be able to do is you're going to be able to talk about that person's USP, or they're going to need to be able to talk about your USP. When you have a USP, you have something that people can tell others about your product or your service. All USPs, when you were talking about selling information products or writing books, you have to have a USP not only at the brand level, so it's not just about you, right? You've got to have a USP about your brand, but that product has to have a USP. There's got to be a reason that I need my 10th copywriting book. What does your 10th one say? What does your 10th one teach that all the other nine do not teach that I have to have yours? Your USP must be at the information product level. And this should give you some encouragement because you might come into the market, you might say, and let's say that you're going into the keto market, and you might say, well, gee whiz, there are probably 10,000 books on keto dieting. Why would people buy mine? There's no reason that mine is. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to make it so that there's a USP in there so that people have to get yours, even if they've got all 9,999 books. They got to have yours too because of what you put in there and because of what you bring to that information product. And here's what's important. The better your USP for that information product, the more evergreen the product sales. So that product, it's not just going to be a matter of, well, is this information relevant 10 years from now? That's part of it. If you're going to have a perennial seller, you're going to have something that's got just a fantastic USP so that people have to come back to it over and over again year after year. The better USP, the more evergreen the product sale is going to be. A USP is ultimately what's going to provide you in your market, in your niche, a sustainable competitive advantage. And that is what you want. You don't want something that somebody's going to come in behind you and copy real fast and very easily. Now, again, it's hard to do that with information marketing, but it's not impossible. And so what you got to do is you got to create space. And the way you create space with an information product, even if it's for a short period of time, is with a USP. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're selling, whatever you're marketing, put something in it that I cannot get elsewhere, that I can only get from you, because what that's going to do for that product, it's going to allow it to compete in the marketplace for whatever its life is supposed to be. Right? You need sustainable competitive advantage. You cannot sustain a competitive advantage if it's going to be like everything else. The only way you sustain a competitive advantage is with a USP. Now, you may have heard of the blue ocean concept, and there's some synergy with that. And yeah, it does kind of dovetail with that. Yes, you want to go into markets where there's not a lot of competition, and you want to be there first, and you want to make sure that you're the only one there, and you develop this sustainable competitive advantage because you were the first one there. And while that is true, a blue ocean is hard to find, and it's pretty rare to find one. Sometimes, as an information marketer, you are just going to have to go into a market where everybody is, where, they say that, there's blood in the water because there's so many sharks there. You are going to have to go into the market to stand and compete. There's no avoiding that. So you're not going to be able to just find blue oceans in everything you sell. All your products are just going to be brand new. Everybody's going to love them because you found this new thing that everybody wants. That's not. It's probably not going to be realistic. And you can wait a long time to try to find a blue ocean and never produce anything. What you've got to do instead is you got to go to market with what you have. You just got to make sure you've got a USP in it. And when you do this, and I've intimated this at the beginning and throughout this, be careful about things that everybody is talking about and everybody's doing. So don't go running because everybody says you got to have this one thing. Don't go running because everybody says you got to be teaching this one thing. You and I need to be careful about things that everybody is doing. This is something that Dan Kennedy picked up from Earl Nightingale. He talks about it all the time. And basically, here's what he says. The majority is always wrong. So don't go running after the majority. Don't go thinking, well, everybody says I've got to have this now. Everybody says I've got to be into this. Maybe and maybe not. I'm going to have you think about something here. It is a story that I tell about Dan Kennedy without really being a Dan Kennedy worshiper or a Dan Kennedy fanboy. And one of the things that you need to understand about Dan Kennedy is this. The book most referred to by internet information marketers was written before the internet became a marketing channel. Because in other words, the expertise that he built has nothing to do with the internet, except now that it's relevant to all the people who use the internet. So here's the example I'm going to give you. What you should do and what you and I need to do is we need to have things that are going to transcend right now. The flavor of the month or the flavor of the year, or the flavor of the decade, or the flavor of the millennium is probably going to be AI. Well, what do you do? What principles do you have in that you put inside of your products that transcend AI? If all you're going to talk about is AI, you're very easy to copy. You've got to be able to do exactly what Dan Kennedy said so that your principles are in such demand and they have so much depth to them that when the internet came along, it became relevant to his principles. You and I have to create the same thing when it comes to AI. Let's talk about exponential marketing, which is the second principle. More often than not, right? One client or one customer, they're going to have more than one way for you to help them. And when that's the case, what you're going to have to do is make all kinds of assistance available at all kinds of price points, right? So in other words, you can have all the same information available, but you've got to make sure it's available at multiple price points. When you have a customer or client buy from you, they may not always be able to upscale and get your higher price programs. And I don't care what the price is. They may not be able to afford whatever your pricing is. And so what you've got to do is you've got to make sure that there's something available to them, even if it's a piece of some of what you're doing at a certain price point, so that they can get access to you too. And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to move people into some program and they can't pay you. Right? That's the wrong thing to do. So I've heard information marketers say, well, if I get that last dime of their on their credit card, then that's a good thing. That may or may not be a good thing. And you don't want to be in the business of doing that. And I know that that's a belief of information marketers, but you don't have to do that. And you may not want to do that. And so one of the things you're going to have to do is you've got to have a lot of things available, and you've got to have a lot of things available at a lot of price points so that people can get them when they can get them. I'm not saying don't sell to people. I'm saying make sure you've got a lot of things available at a lot of different price points so that people can get them when they need them and when they want them. When they see the offer is going to be critical. And so whenever you make an offer, you can send customers to see an offer immediately after they make a purchase, right? That's what exponential marketing is. And typically, you're going to be charging them a higher price at that next offer. And so what you're trying to do in any upsell is to give your customer more satisfaction. That's the benefit of an upsell. So whenever you're selling them something, let's say a basic level or front end level, what's the upsell? And what are you trying to do in the upsell? What's going to come next for them? You are trying to do something so that that first purchase that they made, they're going to get a maximum amount of enjoyment from it, a maximum amount of satisfaction from it because of the upsell. In other words, can you give them a companion guide? That's just an example. Can you give them something that maybe an access to an online community? Now, again, I want to be I want to be careful about how I say that. I don't just mean that you default and put them in a Facebook group. That's not necessarily giving them more satisfaction with what they purchase. Can you give them access to something that will give them more satisfaction with what they have already purchased? Can you give them access to a private podcast? That's something that a lot of people are doing these days. So that, yes, they're getting access to you, but they're not getting access that everybody can get on iTunes. They're getting access to something special just that they bought so that they can get more satisfaction with what they purchase. And these are just some of the ways, right? And they're not the only ways, they're just some of the ways in which you're going to upsell them into something so they can get more satisfaction. And so all of this is going to be important. And every element of this marketing system, every element of a marketing framework is important because it reflects all the other levels. So in other words, having a USP will affect your exponential marketing and every other aspect of the marketing plan. And so when you're doing upsells effectively and you're working with affiliates, you have to understand, well, those affiliates are going to be sharing in the revenue of that first offer. And so it's common, right? You may not want to do this, but it's very common in the information marketing industry to give the affiliates 100% of the first offer, right? To incentivize them to promote for you. And that might seem quite a bit, but generally, you make your profit on the higher price offers after the first one, right? That's typically going to be the way it's going to work. So here's how you're going to think about upsells. The first, you want to think, how can I give enjoyment? That's the first product that they get. How can I give them that enjoyment faster? Right? That's what your first upsell is going to do. Your second upsell is going to be, how can I get them to retain the benefit? And then the fourth one's going to be, how can I get them to develop, right? And so these are all upsells that you want to make sure that you think about, that you give your customer access to in the upsell area. And if you want to go a fifth level, you can also talk about how can you help them grow. And typically that's going to be a higher ticket offer. So if you think about your upsells in that order, enjoyment, faster results, retain the results, growth and development at the end, and then growth being a little more personal one-on-one time, your higher ticket offer or personal one-on-one coaching. So again, now the first upsell is an enjoyment offer, right? So how can you give your customer more joy from their original purchase? So they bought this one thing. Your first upsell is going to give them more enjoyment, more joy from the original purchase. The second upsell is speed. How can you give your customer faster results? So let's think about keto dieting. So if you were so your first upsell, you've already given them a something so that they can enjoy the keto diet experience more. The second upsell is going to be, how can they get more? How can they lose more weight faster? The third upsell is going to be retention. So in other words, they lost a lot of weight. How are they going to keep that going? Well, you might put them in some kind of community where they've got to pay you monthly, where you can continue to encourage them on a regular basis. The fourth offer is going to be developmental. Maybe you go beyond weight loss and you say, well, you know what? Now it's time to move into fitness, right? We need to move you into something where you're going to be doing exercising and lifting weights. And the fourth offer is that. And the fifth offer is going to be a growth offer. So in other words, they're going to be able to come to you in order to get personal coaching. So in other words, we set these upsells up so that we have all people at all price points. Because what you're going to find is this: when you get to the fifth offer, you might think, well, that's a little too much, and that's going to be higher price, and nobody's going to want that. There's some people who are going to buy from you who would just go to the fifth offer, pay you what you're asking for to make all problems go away. There are always going to be people who will come to you who are buying from you. They don't care about what the money is. They know that you're the person to solve the problem. They just want to make the problem go away. But you've got to get them into the marketing funnel, and you've got to take them through the first upsell, second upsell, third upsell, fourth upsell, fifth upsell. Some people go straight for the fifth offer and they wonder why it doesn't promote. That's because sometimes people need to turn down the other offers before they get to the fifth offer. The other thing is that doesn't mean that all these offers have to happen on the same day. So in some cases, you may have an upsell, a first upsell and a second upsell, and they may not see the third upsell till a week later. They may not see the fourth upsell till a month later. They might see the fifth offer maybe, 2 or 3 months from now. So again, we're talking about a way of being able to deliver more and more results to people who want more and more satisfaction from their original purchase. Let's talk about list building. You need a reliable way that you control that allows you to contact your customers. And a lot of things these days, they sort of default to social media. I've got likes and I've got followers and I've got all these things. And if you're generating a lot of repeat revenue, and I say repeat revenue, I'm not talking about getting new customers every day. I'm talking about repeat revenue from repeat customers. You should continue it if you're using social media and that's what you're doing. But it should always be alongside and in concert with email. And that means that everybody that becomes a prospect or customer, they should be added to your email marketing list. That's really simple. And it's something that you are going to have to go through the logistics of making sure it happens in your business. You've got to make sure you're doing it intentionally in everything that you do. It also means that you're going to keep in contact with these people. You don't just have an email list as a vanity project. So it's not for you to brag about how many names are going to be on your email list. It's really for contacting people. And you don't have to have a huge list, because what we're talking about here in this session is so that you can maximize your profits with a very small list. If you're doing all the things that we talk about here in these systems, you don't have to have a outsized list. What you've got to have is you've got to have engagement. And so, yes, every email that you send should have a call to action. And growing your list is a good thing, but you want that list to be engaged with you. And so you've got to have people looking forward to what you're saying, right? And that's the goal. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it's something that you have to work toward every single day. And some days you're not going to accomplish your goal, but in most days, if you work at it, it might take months, it might take years, depends on what your customer base is. You need to have people that are looking forward to hearing from you every day. Now, here's what's important. And when you start the relationship, when somebody becomes part of your email marketing list, you're going to have to share something with those people for them to purchase. And here's why I say that. And I know that some people feel like you've got to wait 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks. If in some cases, what happens is you've communicated the wrong message. If you say, well, I'm just going to give you all this wonderful information, I'm not going to ask you to buy anything, and then at the point at which you start asking, it becomes an irritation. And so yes, in some cases, maybe you want to do a warming up sequence, but in general, you want to start the relationship by letting people know that, look, you're in business. You're not a charity. You're going to be sharing resources with them. You're going to be providing value with them, but you are going to be asking them to make a purchase. And you might have a lot of people to just bolt from your list right away. Well, in the long run, more than likely, you probably don't want those people on your list anyway. If you start asking for the sale suddenly, after 3 weeks, you haven't been asking for the sale, they're brand new to your list. And then 3 weeks in, you're going to say, well, I'm done giving value. Now I'm going to ask you to actually purchase something. You're going to have a lot of offended people. So the best thing to do, and again, this is not a perfect system, right? Again, you're going to have people to leave at the very beginning, but you want to start that relationship off at the beginning, you want to start where you are going when you are list building. Let's talk about partnerships and alliances. And one of the ways you're going to grow your business without advertising, without putting a lot of time is you're going to have affiliate relationships. Very important because an affiliate is going to send your offer to their client base. And then in some cases, you may send their offer to your client base. It's a reciprocal relationship typically. And you're going to have some kind of affiliate program in order to do that, some kind of affiliate software, but that software is not very difficult to find. And having an affiliate program is also a way that you can allow some of your customers to refer you, right? So you want to give your customers the opportunity to refer you. Now, if you don't do that, right, you can't reap the benefits of satisfied customers who want to tell other people like them about what it is you're doing for them. And so now, in some cases, you need a formal arrangement. In other cases, it's going to be informal, but you've got to have one. And that's going to be the way a lot of you're going to be able to benefit from people who earn an income from recommending products like yours to their customer list. Now, I want to come back to USP because this is where USP is going to be very, very important because typically you are going to have a case where you're going to have to decide on who you want to refer you, right? And so you're going to have to differentiate. And so you don't want just anybody bringing you new customers. In some cases, you want to be able to say, well, I like this kind of customer. I don't like this other kind of customer. And so yes, you need to have an email list and you need to be able to say that, look, I'll send your offer to to our community if you'll send our offer to your community. It works reciprocally. Okay. And so, yeah, you do when you do this, you want to work with a system that is hands off, right? So you don't want to be between an affiliate and their money. So you want to make sure that they know what they've earned. They know what kind of traffic they're sending. They know what they're doing. There's no guessing. And then when it comes time for them to be paid, it happens automatically. There are systems that are like that. You don't want to be the one clicking the button because I guarantee you, you can be a day late, you can be 5 days late, and sometimes it can become a problem with affiliates. Affiliates earn the money and they want to be paid when they say, and things happen. And so if possible, and you want to arrange an affiliate relationship with someone, try to do it where it's hands off. You can't mess with it. You can't do anything with it. The affiliate earns it. It goes to them when it's going to be time. And of course, yes, you can also partner for events with not just affiliates, but with partners, right? And a lot of solopreneurs are already doing this. I want to close by talking about educational marketing and publishing and then direct response. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on educational marketing because that is basically the nature of this. But you need to be able to engage the people that you are working with. And there are a lot of ways for you to be able to do that. I mean, you can also, you can do a book. You can certainly have online courses, virtual summits. And again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because you're probably already doing a lot of these things. But what you're basically want to make sure you're doing is everything that you are engaged in, make sure you're recording it all. So anything that you have to do with a customer, anything that you have to do with a client, always record it because that recording can become additional information or digital products when you need them. They can become bonuses when you need them. Record everything, right? Now, again, make sure you tell people, but record everything. You're doing an interview, record the interview. You're doing a talk, record the talk. And again, you don't leave it to chance. If you're going to speak someplace, don't ask them if they're going to record. Just tell them you're bringing your equipment because some people will have their equipment, other people will not. And basically, you want to make sure that it gets recorded and that you get the recording unless there's an agreement not to. Right? Always have the recording of anything that you are doing because everything can be monetized and everything can be restructured into something that can really benefit your customer. I want to close on direct response and marketing. And You're going to have to become familiar with the concept of direct response. And if I've said this once, I've probably said this 5 times over the last week. The entire information marketing business, when you read a sales letter, when you read the structure of an email, when you see a headline and then bullet points, that is all. It's all built on the foundation of direct response. And so this is something that if you're going to sell information, you're going to market your expertise, you're going to market your research, you need to understand direct response, which is based on psychological triggers. And you need to learn the basis of copywriting, right? You might say, well, I'm not a copywriter. I'm just going to outsource it. I'm just going to buy, I'm just going to get a copywriter and buy their services. Um, Even if you do that, right? Even if you're outsourcing your copywriting, you won't know what good copywriting is unless you understand what the principles are. Look, direct response is basically this, right? You're going to initiate an action and you're going to see what the response is. Right. So, you send a letter, you try to see how people are going to respond. You send an email, see how people are going to respond. You make an offer, how are people going to respond? And so you make adjustments based on that response, right? So if I were to simplify direct response down to its most basic atom, it is initiating an action and then seeing how the customer is going to respond. Do they buy? Do they not buy? Do they walk away or not walk away? Do they opt in? Do they not opt in? You initiate an action, they respond in some way, and you measure that response. And so this is a lifelong pursuit. So you're not going to master copywriting, and you're not going to master direct response in one day, 1 month, or 1 year, or even 5 years. It's a lifelong pursuit if you're going to sell your expertise, right? Especially true. And so whatever you're going to be doing, when you start to go higher and higher in pricing, the more you need to understand direct response, even if you choose to outsource your copywriting to someone else in order to do it. And I'm going to say this parenthetically here because there are a lot of there are instances where I've seen that you can get an AI in order to mimic a sales writing process, right? You can get an AI, you can get ChatGPT, you can get Bing or Microsoft Copilot, you can get it to mimic a copywriter. I will tell you this, right? It is no substitute for you knowing your customer and for being able to speak to that customer just as if they were standing right next to you. Because if I were to ask you, tell me about the movie you just saw and whether or not I should go see it, you could be able to tell me without measure whether or not I should go see it. And what would you have to know? You'd have to know me and what I like. You'd have to know what the movie was about, and you'd bridge the gap between what you know about me and what you know about the movie. And you wouldn't say the same thing to everybody. What you would say is you would say the kind of things that would make me want to see it. And so that's basically what the sales process is. And it is something that you have to master over time. And some of that's not going to come, outside of relationship you have with your subscriber list, but it will definitely happen over time. So it's not something you're going to master overnight. One way to do that, though, one way to learn the process of writing, just go to your favorite search engine and look for classic sales letters. And this is what copywriters for centuries have done. Well, not centuries, but decades. Centuries would be a little over the top. You want to get classic sales letters and handwrite them over. Now, there probably is controversy about whether or not that works, and there are probably gurus who say that it doesn't. But for decades, this is the way people learned how to copyright. They would get sales letters that really worked, and they would write them over, and that's how they learned to write good copy. And so where are you going to get these sales letters? You can also get them if you get a letter in the mail and you get the sense that the person who's sending this letter to you, and it's a sales letter, that they're probably making sales and they're probably making money. In order to send that letter, cost them quite a bit, and they've got a pretty good idea it's going to work. That's a sales letter that you can handwrite over to learn the process of copywriting. So again, yes, you can take courses. Yes, you can use ChatGPT and AI and all these other things. but nothing will match your being able to go through the process. And you can start the process yourself. You don't need anybody's permission. You don't need any money. You can learn how to write copy. You can learn the process by getting a classic sales letter and starting the process of handwriting that sales letter over. And if you do that every single day, if you do that work every single day, what you're going to find is that you will start to be able to process what good copy is. And you will even know what it means to have a copywriter that you can hire out.